Welcome to solving absolute value equations. First, we have a little bit of vocabulary we need to talk about. First, we need to remember what an absolute value is. So, what an absolute value is, it's the distance of a number from 0. So, if we're talking about how far is 10 from 0, it's 10 spaces. What about negative 10? That's also 10 spaces. An empty set. Empty set is like a no solution. That means there's no possible number you could plug in for it to work. And we're not going to worry about constraint or extraneous solutions. So let's go on. Absolute value, remember, takes the sign off of a number. So here we need to plug in the 4 for x. So when we work with an absolute value, the absolute values work like a parentheses. So we need to do what's inside the parentheses first. So I need to take the 2 times 4 first, so it'll be 6 minus 8. And then 2.7 plus 6 minus 8 is negative 2. Now we don't drop it off because absolute value is like an operation as well. So we need to take the absolute value of negative 2. So since it takes a sign off the number, that's the same as a positive 2. And then my final answer, 2.7 plus 2, will be 4.7. And that's my answer. So, let's have you try and see if it works out for you. Now what we want to do is learn how to solve an equation that has an absolute value in it. So if you remember earlier, I mentioned that the distance of 10 and negative 10 from 0 is both 10. So we're going to use that every single one of these is going to have 2 solutions. Because we have the absolute value here, the answer for y plus 3 could equal 8, or the answer for y plus 3 could equal a negative 8. So we're always going to have 2 equations. Now from there we just solve like normal, so we have to subtract the 3. So y equals 5. And then subtract the 3 over here. And notice now that it's negative 8 minus 3, it is a different answer. So in this case it would now be negative 11. So every single one of these, once your absolute value is by itself, you have to have 2 answers. One where it's the positive answer, one where it's the negative answer. Now let's see if you can try it. Oh. Okay, so on this one, if you weren't getting the right answer, please remember, we need to set it up as 2x plus 5 equals 15, and 2x plus 5 equals negative 15. So do not forget that. Now, in an equation, if that absolute value is not by itself, you have to get it by itself. Because if here's your wall, I still have that plus 5 that is outside of the absolute value. So I have to move it to the other side. Well, I think about if it's a plus 5, my opposite operation would be a minus 5. So I have the absolute value of 6 minus 4t now equals a negative 5. Now this one I need to take a look at because I know when an absolute value takes the sign off of a number. So what this equation is telling me now is the absolute value of something is a negative 5. I know that is never, ever, ever going to be possible because the absolute value of any number is never going to be negative. So what we do, we use this symbol, and that means no solution or the empty set. So that only happens when your absolute value is totally by itself, but yet it still equals a negative number. Last problem we're going to look at here is what happens if we have a variable on both sides. Well, we're still going to go with, we still need to do 2 equations. So we have 8 plus y. Notice I can do the 2 equations because the absolute value is by itself. Equals still the 2y minus 3. But when I do the second equation, your negative equation, 8 plus y, is now going to equal, and now I'm going to change the signs of both of those on the other side. So negative 2y plus 3. I'm going to solve it like normal, so I subtract the y on this side. So 8 equals y minus 3. Add the 3, so that gives me y equals 11. On the other side, do the same work. That's a nice thing about these. You've already done the work once, so you know what to do again. So I get negative 3 this time plus 3. Subtract the 3, so I get 5 equals negative 3y. Divide by negative 3. And I get the fraction negative 5/3 equals y. Now on these, because I have a variable on this side, it could cause me to have a possible negative solution like we talked about in the last one. So what I need to do is I need to plug each of these answers in and make sure it's true. So for the 11, when I plug it in, 8 plus 11, the absolute value of that, 8 plus 11 is 19, absolute value of that is 19. When I plug the 11 in the other side, it would be 2 times 11 minus 3. 2 times 11 is 22, minus 3 would be 19. That is correct, so 11 is a possible solution. Now when I plug the negative 5/3 in, let me go ahead and get some space here. Sorry about that. Let's do this. So when I plug negative 5/3 in, so absolute value of 8 plus negative 5/3. So 5/3 is negative 1 1/3. So that would be absolute value of 6 2/3. So which would give me 6 2/3. And then when I plug it in the other side, from the beginning, so notice I plug it in the beginning, the 2y minus 3. 2 times negative 5/3 minus 3. That's a positive. Okay, so this will give me a negative 10/3 minus 3, which is a negative 3 1/3 minus 3. So this is going to give me a negative 6 1/3. I might have done the other side wrong. That might be 6 1/3. But the whole point being, this is a positive, this is a negative. They do not equal the same. So this second answer of negative 5/3 is incorrect. So my only answer in this case is y equals 11.